recording Good evening. Let's wait for 1 minute. Okay, one more minute because only 8 people are joining. Okay, we'll start. Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Kanna. Last class we stopped with non-polar molecular solids we completed. Now it's polar molecular solids. So here the molecules or substances like a HCl, sulfur dioxide, they form the polar covalent bonds. What do you mean by polar covalent bond? They have some permanent dipole moment. They have permanent dipole-dipole interaction. They have permanent dipole moment. Positive, negative charge separation should be there. Okay, they are held by that kind of dipole moment only. That is what they become strong bond. Here, say for example, HCl. This HCl, we know that the hydrogen is highly electropositive when compared to chlorine because chlorine is highly electronegative. We know that. Here also chlorine highly electronegative, hydrogen is positive. Now between this is the first molecule and this is the second molecule. All are coming under the category of IMF, that is intermolecular force of attraction. Now the bonding or the force of attraction between these two, okay, which is called dipole interaction. Why it is called dipole interaction? Because it is one dipole, so between the two dipoles the interaction will be there. That is what may be called as dipole interaction, and they're all usually a soft solids and non-conductor of electricity. Generally they're all insulators. Okay, melting points are higher than that of the polar molecular solids because when compared to polar molecular solids, there is no charge separation. But here there is a permanent dipole moment is there. That's for positive charge and negative charge. They're strongly attracted towards each other. That's what they have some higher melting point when compared to non-polar molecular solids. And these are all the good examples: solid, sulfur dioxide, ammonia. These are all the good examples. Most of them are in gaseous form or liquid form at room temperature and pressure. At room temperature and pressure, most probably they're all existing as gases or in the form of liquids. Okay. And the next category is what? That is a hydrogen bonded molecular solid. Okay, what do you mean by hydrogen bonding? Anybody? Hydrogen bonding.
Covalent bond between hydrogen and one of fluorine, oxygen, or nitrogen atom.
Yeah, very nice. So the molecular solid contain a polar covalent bond between hydrogen, fluorine, oxygen, nitrogen, like that. Okay. So the hydrogen is placed in between two highly electronegative atoms such as oxygen, nitrogen, fluorine. Okay, in between that these three atoms, between that any two atoms, one hydrogen is placed, then it is called hydrogen bonding. It is also a force of attraction. It is not the bond one. It is also a force of attraction. Strong hydrogen bonding binds the molecules more strongly. So when compared to non-polar molecular solids, then polar molecular solids, here hydrogen bonded molecular solids are somewhat stronger. So it has higher electricity. That is, it is also non-conductor of electricity, and it has a high melting point. The melting point is very high because of a strong force of attraction and a non-conductor of electricity. Usually, volatile liquids are soft solids under room temperature and pressure. Normally, at room temperature and pressure, they have this kind of things. Say, for example, if I'm taking HF molecule, another HF molecule. But here the force of attraction will be very strong because we know that negative charge, positive charge. Here also negative charge, positive. Now the force of attraction existing between the first HF molecule and second HF molecule. So now the height, if you think about this hydrogen, it is placed in between two highly electronegative fluorine. Okay, then it is called hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonding is not exactly bonding, it is also a force of attraction. When compared to non-polar molecular solids and polar molecular solids, hydrogen bonded molecular solids have some higher melting and boiling point due to strong force of attraction between that hydrogen and highly electronegative atoms such as oxygen, nitrogen, and fluorine. Okay. The next category. So let's see, combine all these things. So it's a molecular type is non-polar molecular solid. Atoms or molecules are the constant particles. Here the London forces, we discussed about that. That is weak van der Waals force of attraction. At any fraction of time, the electron can go back to their original position. So the separation of charge get vanished. Once the separation of charge is getting vanished, there is no force of attraction between the two molecules will be taking place. So that is what they will be called as a weak force of attraction. It is also non-conductor. Melting point is very low and soft solids, and usually these kind of diatomic molecules. Okay, diatomic molecules, monodiatomic molecules. And here polar molecular solids, molecules are the constant particles. Dipole-dipole interaction will be there, and it is also a non-conductor of electricity. Melting point somewhat higher than that of non-polar molecular solids, so it has some low. It is very low, so it is low. So somewhat it is bigger than that of a non-polar molecular solid. And it is also soft. These are all the examples we discussed. Hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So it forms generally it is occur in molecules, and force of attraction between them or hydrogen bonding is very, very important. And it is also coming under the category of non-conductor category. It does not conduct any electricity, and it is also very low. Melting point is also very low. When compared to these two things, it is somewhat high. But when compared to other molecular solids, it will be low. That's what they will also be acting as a soft solids like HF, H2O. These are all the molecules which are undergoing what kind of things? Hydrogen bonded molecular solids. Okay. And next one is crystalline solids. Crystalline solids, we know that amorphous solids are short range order. So most of the solids are in crystalline nature. Okay. So based on the intermolecular forces, it can be categorized into molecular solids. In that molecular solid, we discussed about three things. One is non-polar, another one is polar, another one is hydrogen bonded molecular solids. And the next categories are ionic solids, metallic solids, and covalent solids. Okay. The first thing is ionic solids. So first thing, molecular solids, we already discussed about these things. So that is non-polar molecular solid, polar molecular solid, hydrogen bonded molecular solid we discussed. So ionic solids. So here the constant particles are ions. Ions are the constant particles for these kind of solids, and they have a real charges. They are having a real charge. So the force of attraction will be very, very strong. So cations having positively charged and anions are negatively charged. So for example, if I'm taking NaCl as a salt, it's a kind of example for ionic solid, Na plus and Cl minus is there. So there will be a positive and negative charge will be getting attracted. So Cl minus complete negative charges, Na plus complete positive charges. So they strongly attract towards each other, so it forms strong bonding, ionic solids. Just a minute. Yeah, and it is somewhat hard and brittle in nature. Non-conductor of electricity in solid state, it is very, very important note. So ionic solids are does not conduct any electricity in solid state, but in molten state or aqueous state, it acts as a conductor. Okay, it is a non-conductor while it is in solid state, but if it is in molten state or aqueous state, it can act as a conductor. Okay, what is mean by molten state? Say for example, if I'm taken NaCl as a salt, okay, what is the molten state of NaCl? What kind of ions will be there?
Na plus and Cl minus.
Okay, what is the molten state?
A plus Cl minus.
Very good, very good. What is the molten state?
Charge
Okay, what is the
dissociation.
Okay, sorry.
Dissociation, sir.
Dissociation. Okay, fine. Okay, what is the difference between molten and aqueous state?
So molten will be like semi-solid, sir. Aqueous will be fully liquid.
Fully liquid. Sure. Any other idea?
Sir, in aqueous, majority, the solvent is water, sir.
Solvent is water. Okay, for molten state,
Molten state, it will be the constituent, sir. Constituent is dissolved in the water, sir.
only constant. Not not in water. Okay. If it is an aqueous state, it will be considered as solution. This is a liquid. It's not solution. Okay. So here it's also a solution which consists of Na plus and Cl minus ions only. Na plus and Cl minus ions. Say for example, I am taken a beaker. In that beaker, I am taken NaCl. NaCl will be taken. If NaCl is heated, if NaCl is heated, what will happen? So it will get melted. Initially, it is in the form of salt. After some time, after reaching its melting point, it becomes a liquid. Now also it carries Na plus and Cl minus ions only. Am I right? So the liquid NaCl is otherwise called as a molten NaCl. Okay, liquid NaCl is otherwise called as molten state. So what is the difference between molten and aqueous state? So that is simple one. If NaCl will be taken, if we add some water, then it becomes aqueous solution of NaCl. Okay. So in presence of water only it becomes aqueous. Without water, only Na plus and Cl minus 1 constants are there. Here Na plus ions, H plus ions, Cl minus ions, OH minus ions. That kind of ions will be there in the case of aqueous state. But in molten state, nothing but salt எடுக்கிறீங்க அப்படியே ஹீட் பண்றீங்க உருக்குறீங்க அவ்வளவுதான் அதுதான் என்னது molten NaCl. அதை வாட்டர்ல டிசால்வ் பண்ணிட்டீங்க அப்படின்னா that become aqueous state. Okay. And they have high melting point and boiling points. Why? Because they have real charges. I told you already. So they are having real charges. If it is real charges, the force of attraction will be very, very strong. If the force of attraction will be very strong, then we can't break it very easily. If we can't break it very easily means we need to supply more amount of energy to break the bond. If we want to supply more amount of energy to break the bond means, what is that? It has high melting and boiling points. Okay. These are all some of the examples for it. Okay. And these ions are held together by electrostatic forces of attraction, which is having a real charge. Very, very important. Real charges. They're all held by real charges. They are having real charges. Okay. And that's all about the ionic solids. Next one is metallic solids. Metallic solids. Metals are orderly collection of positive ions. So likewise, positive ions, positive ions, positive ions. They're all arranged in some order. Surrounded and held by the sea of electrons. Held by the sea of electrons, free electrons. So these black color coated, these are all the things which will be called as electron cloud. And what about the positive charges? This is a cation of metal. Okay, metal cation. Say for example, Na plus, Na or CaCl2, something like that. Whatever the salt we have taken, CaCl2, the Ca2 plus will be here, and surrounding that we have sea of electrons, ocean of electrons will be there. Okay. Now the electrons can easily flow through the network of positive charges from one end to another end. Okay. From one end to another end, the electrons can flow through the network of positive charges. Okay. Just a minute. It's And I think so. Just a minute, then I just hand that. So usually the electron will flow through the network of positive charges. When you apply the heat, the thermal energy is spread uniformly throughout the crystal. When you apply heat, I'm able to write also. Wait a minute, Kana, please. I think so. It was fully hanged there. Okay. So let's continue with this. So here we already saw that the positive charges will be there. So there will be a network of positive charges. Okay. So the network of positive charges will be there, in which
Sir,
we
which
have
one
whose-
you're present? Sir, which one you are presenting, sir?
oh, yeah, just a minute. Oh,
It's showing polar
not showing,
molecules.
just a minute, just a minute. Can you able to see now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So here there will be a network of positive charges will be there. Along with that, we have ocean of electrons will also. So now the free electron, the electron will flow through the network of positive charges. We know that. When you apply a heat, the thermal energy is uniformly spread out. When you apply heat, thermal energy is uniformly spread out. By free electrons. Okay, this is very, very important one. So by the free electron only, that means the charges or the heat or the energy can be uniformly distributed to all the ions. Okay, and usually these are having some colored ions. Colored salts will be there. Colored salts will be there. And colored metallic solids will be there. So why this is due to, so when light, say for example, we are having a solid like this, and here when light passed on this solid, so the electrons can jump from ground state to excited state. This is excited state. This is ground state. So when excited state is a higher energy state and is also unstable state. So while it return to the ground state, it emit energy in the form of light, so that the solids will be looking like in the form of colors, so they can start glowing. Okay, so that kind of things will be there in the case of metallic solids. Okay, so while it return to the ground state, it emits amount of energy in the form of light because it want to stabilize. So stabilization will be taking place at lower energy state only. So while absorbing energy, it goes to the excited state. After that, it is an unstable state. It realized. So then it try to become try to come to the ground state. So while coming to the ground state, it remove or it release amount of energy in the form of light, not in the form of heat. It can produce light. So the light will be looking like to be, the salts will be looking as a color what the light is emitted. Okay. And it is also malleable and ductile. So we can make it in the form of sheets, we can make it in the form of wires. Okay, so these kind of things we can make it. Okay, then free electrons will allow the metal to slide over one another. Okay, that is what they have a property of malleability and ductility. Okay, the free electrons will allow the metal to slip. Free electrons will allow, say for example, we have first layer, we have second layer. Okay, so because of the free electrons, we can allow the metal to slip over one another. So that's what they can make it in the form of sheet-like structure. So if you make any iron sheet, or if you have a coin, if you that means if you give any force, say for example, we have a coin, okay, you are giving force on that, so it will be in the form of a sheet-like structure, or we can make it in the form of wire-like structure. Okay, that kind of property can be obtained by these kind of things. Okay, so obtained by the free electrons. The free electrons can allow the metal to slide over one another. That is the property of metallic solids. And another one is important one, that is a covalent solids. What do you mean by covalent solids? They're all otherwise called as network solids. Covalent solids. Just a minute, I will check it here. So covalent solids. Covalent solids, what are all the constant particles of covalent solids? You have any idea about this? Constituent
Atoms,
particles.
sir.
Yeah, atoms are constant particles. Atoms are constituent particles. And here, diamond, even a carbon, is all the good example for covalent solids because they form carbon, 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 carbon. Like that, it forms a bond, n number of bonds. That's what they can give a big structure. It can form a big structure or giant molecule. And they're all generally a non-metals. Non-metals. And they're all very strong. They're all very strong. In general covalent solids, we can see some examples like graphite. But graphite is not a strong one, it is a soft one. Okay, it's a soft one. That's exceptional case. And even a diamond, it's a strong one. Then silicon carbide. Did you heard about the silicon carbide? Did you heard about the silicon carbide?
No, sir.
Okay, diamond. Did you know about the diamond? Okay, what is the important property of diamond?
We can use another
Diamond is
diamond to cut a diamond, sir.
Okay, hardest substance. Hardest substance in known. Hardest known substance is a diamond. It's the most hardest substance in the world from the known point of view. Okay. இதெல்லாம் கண்டுபிடிச்சிருக்காங்களோ அதுல இருந்து பார்க்கறதுல diamond is a somewhat the hardest substance in the world. So this is a naturally available. This is naturally available one. But silicon carbide, it is an artificially made, and it is also hardest. It is also hardest. For the diamond, they can measure the hardness by Mohs scale. Mohs scale. So the maximum value is 10. So the diamond has 10 is the value. But for artificially made silicon carbide, the Mohs value is 9.5. So in the artificially made abrasives, we can say, which are all called abrasives. Okay. So the hardest substances. So the value is 9.5. It is also a most hardest substance in synthetic material. Artificially made material, we have a most hardest substance is silicon carbide. So in general, we can, if you go to any glass shop or frame working shop, they can use some pencil like some tip like this. They can have some tip like this. In this tip, they contain silicon carbide, okay, SiC. So the SiC, which is used to cut the glasses, even metals, germs, okay, that kind of things can be cut by using this silicon carbide material. Okay, generally they are very hard and also brittle in nature. Hard and brittle in nature, and they are insulator. They're all insulator, very, very important one, but only one exception is there. Okay, generally, what is that? Covalent solids are acting as an insulator, but graphite is exceptional case. I already told you it's a soft one. It's not to be hard one. And graphite is a conductor of heat. Conductor. Graphite is a conductor. So even though it is coming under the covalent solids, graphite is a conductor of heat and light, energy. Okay, electricity. So the conductor, it's a graphite is a conductor. Why graphite will be acting as a conductor? You have any idea about this? Carbon. So what is the atomic number of carbon?
So is it due to its structure, sir?
Due to its structure. Very good. Then any other point? Due to structure is a very good valid point.
Constituent particles.
Constant particles are only carbon. Here all are carbon only.
Oh, sir, I'm talking about the electrons. Constant electrons in the.
Where? Graphite.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You said
So
about that
before-
uniform layers, no, sir. That one.
Okay, fine. So that is in metallic solids. It's covalent one. Okay, so it's somewhat different. So here diamond, and here graphite. So it is a strong one, it is a weak one, and it's also a soft one. Okay, why? This is due to the free electron which is present in graphite. How the free electrons will come, sir? So while you're looking at the graphite structure, just a minute, I will try to do this again. Just a minute. That will close. So the diamond structure will be like this. So all the carbon atoms, this is the carbon atom, carbon atom, carbon atom, carbon. All the 4 carbon atom, which is this carbon atom is also shared by four carbon. This also shared by 4 carbon. This also shared by 4 carbon. Every carbon is shared by 4 carbon. But in the graphite structure, it is not like that. Okay, only 3 carbons are shared. Graphite structure will be like this. The hexagonal arrangement. So this hexagonal line, this is the one layer. So within that layer, carbon, 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 carbon. So within this layer, each carbon are held together by strong covalent bonds. Now we have another layer. You have seen that another layer is here. In this layer also we have carbon, 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 carbon. So each layer consists of 6 carbon atoms. Each carbon atom are held together by strong covalent bonds, but each layers are not held together by strong covalent bonds. Okay, that is what they can slip one over another. That's what they are very, very soft. Moreover, here, if we want to see the carbon, what is the atomic number of carbon? Atomic number of carbon.
4, sir.
Atomic number of carbon. Number. 6 is atomic mass.
6.
Atomic number. Okay. What about that?
12, sir.
Sorry.
Atomic
What
number of
about
carbon
the-
is 12, sir.
Atomic number of carbon is 6 only. Atomic mass is 12. Okay. Can you tell me the electronic configuration of this one?
2, 4.
1s2, 2s2, 2p2. Am I right? So this is the K shell and this is the L shell. We know that valence electron, 4 electrons will be there. So the carbon can able to form 4 bonds. Am I right? The carbon having a capacity to form 4 bonds. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But here, all the 4 bonds are satisfied by another carbon in the case of a diamond. But in the case of, what is that, graphite, just assume that this is the first shell, it's a K shell, it's a K shell, which consists of 2 electrons, right? 1, 2, yes. This is a second shell. Second shell, how many electrons I can occupy at maximum? Maximum, how many electrons I can occupy? How many electrons I can occupy in the second shell? Yeah, it's a 2n squared formula, man. If n equal to 1, first shell, how many electron? 2 electron. If n equal to 2, 2n squared, n equal to 2
8
means
electrons, sir.
8 electrons. If n equal to 2, 3,
18, sir.
18 electrons. Likewise, it goes on. Okay. So if n equal to 2, n equal to 3, likewise it goes. So I can occupy 8 electrons, but I have only 4 electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that clear? Nearby carbon also I have 2 electrons each in case shell. Next shell. Next shell I have how many electrons? 4 electrons. Here 1 electron, second electron, third electron, fourth electron. And here nearby also. Nearby this. Here also how many electrons? So here 1, 2. And here 4 electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4. So each side can be occupied by 3 electrons can be satisfied. 1 electron is left as it is. So 1 electron will be provided by this carbon. 1 electron will be provided by this carbon. You assume that this is atom carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number. Now 3 carbons electrons are satisfied. Am I right? So this give 1 electron. This will give 1 electron. They form covalent bond. This will give 1 electron. This will give 1 electron. They form covalent bond. This will give 1 electron. This will give 1 electron. They form covalent bond. But one of the electron will be unused form. These electrons can easily move, easily can travel. That is what they can conduct electricity. So graphite is a good conductor of electricity due to that free electrons in its valence shell. Is that clear or not?
Clear, sir.
Yeah, just a minute. Why is not closing? PowerPoint is completely hanged. The next one is crystal lattice. Crystal lattice. Okay, what do you mean by crystal lattice? Do you have any idea about this crystal lattice?
Arrangement of
Crystal
atoms
lattice.
arrangement of atoms in the crystal structure, sir.
Arrangement of constant particles in crystal structure. Okay, so we can simply say it's a regular repeating pattern of arrangement. Arrangement of constituent particles. Constant particles we can say. Or otherwise, the periodic and systematic arrangement of atoms in crystal. Simply in a single word, we can say it is a point space. Point of space or point space, we can say. So, or a point in a space, we can say. Okay. So, but generally in amorphous solid, there is no crystal lattice. Amorphous solids, no crystal lattice. In amorphous solids, there is no crystal lattice. But in crystalline solids, it plays a very, very important role because the physical properties depends on this crystal lattice, such as electrical conductivity, malleability, and ductility. So we have many more properties like even melting point, boiling point, all are entirely depends on this lattice. Okay. So generally, what is a lattice? Lattice is nothing but it is a point of space, I told you. So what is a point of space? So in space, it will be considered as a single point. That point is called as lattice. So each point in a lattice is called lattice point. Each point. So for example, you consider this to one point, second point, third point, fourth point. If you assume it here, 1 point, second point, third point, fourth point. Okay. So if you combine all the points, what will happen? It will provide the geometry of the crystal. Is that clear? It will provide a geometry of a crystal. Is that clear? So it's like to be a cube-like structure. So they provide a geometry of the crystal if it is combined. So each point in a crystalline or crystal lattice represents one constituent particle. For example, if you consider this is a constant particle, this is a point of space, one constant particle, second one, third one, fourth one, say 6, 7, 8. Likewise, 8 number of constant particles are arranged in such a manner they form some lattice. This is called crystal lattice that will give the geometry of the crystals. Okay. And next one is a unit cell. What do you mean by unit cell?
Sir, geometry means what, sir?
Geometry means a structure, shape or structure.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I'll show you in the diagram because it's not opening. You're not even closing. Just a minute. Geometry is nothing but what is that shape of the molecule? Okay, shape of the molecule or shape of the lattice. Okay. The next one is a unit cell. What do you mean by unit cell? Did you heard about this unit cell? Unit cell. This is one unit. This is one unit cell. It is a smallest portion of crystal lattice, which when repeated in different directions and generate entire crystal. It's called unit cell. Unit cell is nothing but if you want to construct a wall, like a wall, okay, what are the important things? The important things to be needed is bricks. Okay, bricks are very important to construct a wall. So the unit cell, it's like to be a brick. It is the smallest portion. Number of unit cells are combined to form a big wall. The number of bricks are combined to form a big wall. Likewise, the number of unit cells are combined to form a big crystal. Yeah. So it is a building blocks of crystal. Unit cell is nothing but it is a building blocks of a crystal. Is that clear? So unit cell is a building blocks of a crystal, and it can be characterized by the unit cell characterization. So it can be the dimensions or the unit cell is characterized by 6 parameters. What are all the 6 parameters? The first 3 parameters are edge length, and another one is angles between them. So first 3 parameters are edge lengths. They can be simply called as A, B, C. These are all the edge lengths we can say. Angles between them are called alpha, beta, and gamma. Alpha, beta, and gamma. Okay. So now you consider this is a kind of unit cell. Just on drawing. Each and every point will be connected with each other. They consist of constant particles. Okay. So here you consider this is the edges A, B, C, and this is A, and this is B, and this is C. This edge is called A, and this is A, this is B, and angles between them are alpha. That is B and C. Between B and C, it will be called as alpha. For A and C, it is beta. For A and B, it is gamma. Okay. So alpha, beta, gamma. These are all the three. Here, suppose A equal to B equal to C, which means that all the edges are equal. Then it is called simple cubic. It may be the alignment may be like this. Okay. So A, B, C are equal. At the same time, alpha equal to beta equal to gamma. That is are also equal. Are also equal. So if we say this is a kind of unit. It's a kind of unit cell. Maybe like this. Suppose if I'm having a unit cell like this. You consider connecting all these points, I'll be getting a unit cell like this. Here also we have A and B and also C. Here almost A and B, this is C. So A edge length is different from B. So A not equal to B and B also not equal to C. But angle between them are equal. It is alpha, this is beta, and this is gamma. So alpha equal to beta equal to gamma. Okay. All things. Very, very important one. So based on this, they can categorize the crystal lattice into 7 types. Okay, there are 7 types of crystal lattices are available. Let us discuss one by one. The first thing is the crystal lattice. Crystal lattice. 7 lattice systems. So based on the difference between edge lengths as well as angles between them. Okay, based on that, they can categorize into 7 types. Okay, based on that, they can categorize this into 7 types. What are all the types? Let's discuss. The first one is cubic. Cubic. Simple cubic. Okay, simple cubic we can see. So here, A equal to B equal to C. At the same time, alpha equal to beta equal to gamma, that is also equal to 90. Then it is coming under the category of cubic. Simply, it will be looking like this. A perfect square. Okay, the perfect square will be. You consider. Perfect square here. Yeah. It will be like this. The perfect square will be there. Okay. And here also, this is A, this is B, and this is C. So here, A equal to B equal to C, A equal to B equal to C, and alpha equal to beta equal to gamma, which is also equal to 90 degrees. Okay, then it is angles between them are equal, and then edge length also equal. And next one is tetragonal. Tetragonal. There I have some animation. That's what I want to show you because it's hanged completely. Just a minute. Okay, I think so. It won't come. So tetragonal is nothing but A equal to B, but not equal to. Here, alpha equal to beta equal to gamma, that is equal to 90 degrees. It is called tetragonal structure. And orthorhombic. What is orthorhombic? A not equal to B not equal to C, but alpha equal to beta equal to gamma, that is equal to 90 degrees. That is called orthorhombic. And what about the next one? The hexagonal. Hexagon. A equal to B but not equal to C. And here alpha equal to gamma, that is equal to 90 degree, but beta that is equal to 120 degree. That is hexagonal. The next one is the monoclinic. Monoclinic. These are all the based on this edge length variation and the angle variation can be categorized into 7 types. Monoclinic, here also A not equal to B not equal to C, but alpha equal to gamma, that is equal to 90 degree, but beta not equal to 90 degree. Okay, that is called monoclinic structure. And triclinic. Triclinic. Triclinic, there is A not equal to B not equal to C, but alpha not equal to beta not equal to gamma, that is also not equal to 90 degree. Then it is called what is that? Triclinic structure. Is that clear? Triclinic in nature. Okay. So these are all the things. Okay. Is that clear or not? So there are 7 crystal lattice systems. So one more thing, we must be written 1v6, am I right? Cubic, tetragonal, orthorhombic, hexagonal, monoclinic, triclinic. Yes, we missed one more thing. What is that? Rhombohedral. Rhombohedral. It is nothing but a tilted cube-like structure. A equal to B equal to C, but edge lengths are not equal to 90 degrees. So alpha equal to beta equal to gamma, but that is not equal to 90 degrees. Then it is called rhombohedral. Otherwise, it is simply called as tilted cube. This will be otherwise called as a tilted cube. Tilted cube-like structure. Okay. So based on the variation of alpha, beta, gamma, then A, comma, B, comma, C, edge lengths, it can be categorized into 7 basic unit types. Okay. These are all the 7 lattice systems will be available. The next thing is, you should know one thing, is unit cell category. Unit cell categories. What are all the unit cell categories? So unit cell, we have 2 categories. One is primitive unit cell. What do you mean by primitive unit cell? You have any idea about this? Primitive unit cell. Anybody? What do you mean by
basic unit cells?
Yeah, it's a basic unit cell. It consists only atoms located in corners. You consider this is a unit cell. In this, if I connect all those things, I'll get a basic unit cell, which consists of the atoms which are located only in corners. Then it is called primitive unit cell. It is called atoms or the constant particles. Okay, are located only at corners. Okay, they only located at corners. That's what they can be called as primitive units. Okay. And next category is centered units. Centered unit cell. Centered unit cell means apart from the corner. Okay, the atoms are also located in corners. Okay, except that corners with somewhere else. Somewhere else, atoms may be present. Atoms are present. The atoms are present not only in corners, along with the corners, somewhere else in the unit cell. Okay, that kind of unit cell are called as centered units. Okay, so here we have three type of centered unit cell. One is body centered unit cell, and second one is face centered unit, face centered unit cell, and third one is end centered unit. End centered unit cell. What do you mean by body centered unit cell? Any idea about this? Body centered unit cell.
An atom is present inside the body.
Inside the body. Very good. So if it is a body centered, simply we can say BCC. Face centered, we can say SCC. End centered, we can say, what is that? A, B, C. They can give either three types, in which we have three types, A, B, C. They are called end centered. So first one is a body centered. Body centered means what? Apart from the corners, one entire atom which is present inside the body. We know that atoms are located in corners. These are all the corners. 8 corners are present in the cube. And apart from the corner, some atom, one whole atom which is located inside the body. Inside of the body, one complete atom is there. That is called BCC, body centered unit cell. Yeah. If it is a face centered unit cell, then we can have like face centered unit cell. Here also number of atoms located in corners 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Total 8 corners are there. And apart from the corner, the atoms are located in every faces. How many faces are there here? For this particular unit cell, how many faces you are there? Yeah, there are 6 faces. Right side, left side, top, bottom, and back of this and front of this. Okay, if we have a box, it has 6 faces are there. Okay, out of which 6 faces are there. So in each face we have one atom. Okay, each face we have one atom. Let us check. So one atom present here. For the 2 dimension I'm putting, but I have animation for 3 dimension, but it's not working. Okay, so here 6 atoms are located. This is for top, right, left, bottom, for back side, and this is for front side. Okay, so each atom are contributing like this. And what about the end center? This is what it is.
I have a doubt in FCC.
Yes. Yes, yes.
So is it necessary that there should be an extra atom in all phases?
Definitely.
Only in one phases, FCC.
No. Every phase it should contain one atom.
Okay, sir.
All the 6 phases it should contain atom. Then only it's called as FCC. Okay.
So then, for body-centered unit cell, will the atoms be opposite to these phases?
Opposite to
opposite to each other.
Sorry, I can't get it. Your voice is not clear, please. Please, you can repeat. Your voice is not audible. That's what. Please.
Sir, will the atoms be opposite to each other? Each other for BC, body center.
Opposite to each other means which atom? Either an orange color atom
opposite
or
phases. For the orange one and red one.
Orange one is entirely located. Say, for example, if I have a cake box, okay, if I have a cake box, so in cake box will consist of 8 corners. 8 corners we have 1 atoms. But inside of the box, we have a cake. Okay, the cake is a center atom. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, just a minute, I'll try to open this. I'll show you in the next class, okay? I'll show you in the next class animation. Because then only you can get easy understanding. For that only I put it here. Yeah. So here also we have corner atoms. Corner atom contribution is no problem with that. Each corner we have 1 atom. Okay. And end centered. End centered means what is end centered? End centered either of the two sides, either right, left, or it may be top, bottom, or it may be front and back. Okay, front and back. Either any two sides only the atoms are located. Then it is called as end centered. For example, I am taking this top and bottom atoms. Top and bottom, we have 2 atoms are there. Okay. So now this is called the end centered. If it is located in what is that top, bottom, or left, right, and front, back. Based on that, it can be categorized into A, B, C like that. A, B, C like that. Okay. And now we should know how many number of atoms which is present inside the or present for 1 unit cell, or the number of atoms per unit cell. How to calculate the number of atoms per unit cell? Do you know that? How to
No,
calculate number of atoms per unit cell? Okay. Just a minute, Kana. Wait, I'll try my. Just a minute. No, Kana, it's not working. Okay, so here, let me try to explain. So here, this is a unit cell. This is a unit cell. And we have a corner at. How many corners? 8 corners. Am I right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 8 corner atoms are there. One corner atom contribution is, they said 8 corner atoms. One corner atom contribution is 1 by 8. How it comes? How it comes? So this is a first unit cell. Okay. Likewise, this is the first unit cell. You assume it. So just I'm having this corner. You assume this corner. Okay. Now the second unit cell will also be attached to this. Third unit cell will also be attached to this. Fourth unit cell will be also be attached to this. Now back of this is the front side, and back of this we have same 4 unit cells are there. Now you can assume this corner will be shared by 1, 2, 3, 4. Likewise in the back side. So totally one corner atom, this one round, one atom is shared by 8 nearby unit cell total. Is that clear?
Can you repeat once again?
Yeah, just a minute. I'll repeat. This is a one unit cell. You assume it. So I am unable to put it in 3 dimension. This is what I put it here. Okay. So the entire unit cell will be looking like this. Okay. So, and first corner, you assume this corner. Assume this corner. Now this corner atom, suppose one nearby unit cell I can put like this. So nearby I have, say, a similar group is put it here. Okay. And similar group should be added here. Another similar group should be added here. So these are all the 4 unit cells. This is a front side. And back of this, that means the back side of this, I have same 4 unit cells. Okay. Now this corner is shared by how many unit cells? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. And back of this also we have 4 same similar setup is there. Okay. 4 same similar setup is there. Now this corner atom is shared by 8 other unit cells. So that means totally 8 other unit cells. Totally, if one unit cell is taken, 7 other unit cell, it will be joined. Is that clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one corner atom contribution is how much? So 1 by 8. Am I right? One corner atom contribution is 1 by 8 because 1/8 of the part only occupied for one particular unit cell. For this particular unit cell, the contribution is 1 by 8. For this particular unit cell, this 1 by 8. For this particular unit is 1 by 8. This is also 1 by 8. Back of this 4, also we have 1 by 8, 1 by 8, 1 by 8, 1 by 8. So totally 8 by 8 means we can have one atom. Okay. So the corner atom contribution is 1 by 8. But totally 8 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 corners are there. So total is one atom. And one more thing. Now you can assume it. This is a first unit cell, this unit cell, and this is second unit cell. Okay. So inside of the entire body, we have one atom and one more atom here. Okay. Yes, this unit shell or this atom is shared with any other unit cell. Inside of that white atom, is it sharing any part of that to nearby unit cell?
No, sir, it's not.
No, some entire atom, one entire atom, complete atom, which is located inside of this unit cell, which is not going to share to this side or this side. Any other side doesn't share it. Okay. So the one complete atom contribution is there in each unit cell. So one complete atom is there. So totally how many number of atoms? 2 number of atoms. Is that clear? So corner atom, through the corner atom, I have one atom. So through the center atom, one full center atom, which is located in the one particular unit cell. So total is 2 atoms per unit cell. Is that clear or no?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. With the imagination, we can't understand. Suppose if it is a face center atom. Now you can assume it face center atom. This is one cubic. This is also one cubic. You assume it. And this is a face centered unit cell, that is FCC. If I draw FCC, so corner atoms are also there. Corner atom, how many corners? 8 corners. So we have 8 atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 atoms are there. And we have face centered atom because it is FCC. Okay, FCC. So in all the 6 phases, one phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase, fifth phase, and sixth phase. Okay, fifth phase and sixth phase. Now you can assume it. So the entire thing will be written like this, the one box. One more box will be attached like this. This is the entire unit cell. This entire unit cell I can assume like this, like a square. Okay. We have corner atoms 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm considering it one side. Okay, so one dimension only. And face centered atom, how many face centered atoms? We have face centered atoms. Corner atom, bottom 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all the corner atoms. Face centered atoms, we have one face, second face, third face, fourth face, and back side of this one, front side of this. Am I right? Likewise, this also has front face, top face, back, bottom face, back, and front. Here also it has some corner atoms. Is that clear?
Sir, could you repeat?
Now, yeah. So the assumption is very hard.
Sir, actually, what is that box in the right hand side, sir?
Which one? This one? This one or this one?
No, sir. In the left hand side, you took 2 boxes. No, sir. One square you took as a representation of
One
the whole.
square is one square is one unit cell. Okay. Second square is another unit.
So that
Okay.
is the first square is this first cube, and the second square is another cube, sir.
Another cube. Yes. That's it. First square is one cube. Second square is another cube. Now corner atoms we have. Corner atoms we have. And face centered atoms, you know that 6 faces are there. One face, top face, bottom face, right face, left face, also the left face, and front, back. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now corner atom contribution is what? 8 corner atoms are there. One corner atom contribution is 1/8, as usual, we know that, right? What about the face centered atom? How many faces are there for this particular unit cell? For this particular unit cell, how many faces are there?
12, sir.
Faces. I'm not talking about the edges.
6.
Right face, left face, top face, bottom face, back of this, front of this.
6, sir.
Totally 6 faces are there. Okay, 6 faces are there. Okay, one phase contribution for particular unit cell is what? Because if another unit cell is here, you just assume it, yeah. Well, this is the first unit cell, this is the second unit cell, right? So it can be shared by 2. One half will be shared for this particular unit cell. One half will be shared for this particular unit cell. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Here also, bottom part also we have unit cells. Am I right? Here also we have unit cells. Bottom part also can be shared by one half will be shared to this particular unit cell. One half will be shared for this particular unit cell. Okay. So for one particular unit cell, one face-centered atom contribution is 1/2. Half of the atoms can be shared to the particular unit cell, and another half will be shared to the nearby unit cell. Is that clear or not?
Sir,
Yes, yes.
sir, but here you drew two squares, no, sir, representing two unit cells.
Yeah.
Sir, then if you're calculating the face-centered unit cell for these two squares, means it should come like 12, no, sir, because number of faces in the first cell is 6 and number of faces in the second square is
No,
6, sir.
We are calculating number of atoms per unit cell. We are calculating per unit cell means for one unit cell only we are calculating.
Okay, sir.
You should not club it all those things. Okay. For one particular unit cell, we are going to calculate the number of atoms. Okay. So here, how many total atoms? 3, and here it is 1. Totally 4 atoms per unit. 4 atoms per unit. In body centered, we discussed about only 2 atoms per unit cell. If it is a face centered, we have 4 atoms per unit. Is that clear? Okay. If it is a simple cubic, how many atoms per unit cell? Can anyone say? For simple cubic, how many atoms per unit cell?
Eight into 1/8, sir.
Very nice. 8 into 1/8. So totally 1 atom per unit cell. Okay. That's it. Only atoms are located in corner. They're all called primitive unit cell. Primitive or simple unit cell we can say. Primitive unit cell or simple unit cell. So here number of atoms per unit cell is 1. Okay. Suppose if I'm taken end-centered unit cell. End-centered unit cell. How many atoms may be there for particular unit cell? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So 8 atoms per unit cell. What about end-centered unit cell means what? End-centered means what?
Opposite faces, sir.
Only 2 sides. Am I right? Either top, bottom, or left, right, or front, back. Okay. Suppose if I'm assuming top and bottom atoms are there.
Sir, but there are 3 ends, no, sir. For top, it will be bottom. For left, it will be right, and for front, it will be back. So 3 sides is present, no, sir.
Sorry, I can't get it.
Sir, there are 3 sides present, no, sir. For top, it will be, if you take the opposite sides, for the top, it will be bottom. For left, it will be right. For front, it will be back, no, sir. So then 3 sides will be present, no, sir.
How will be 3 sides? This is a top one. This is a bottom one. Then how will be 3 sides? Only 2 sides now.
No, sir. If you take the opposite ends into consideration, then it will be 3, no, sir.
How it will be 3? I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
Yes, sir. For top, it will be bottom, no, sir.
Top
For
and
left,
bottom. That's it.
Okay, sir.
We are assuming for one unit cell.
Okay, sir.
Either left or right, or front or back. Okay. So now you can calculate how many number of atoms per unit cell. By corner atom contribution, 8 corners are there. One corner atom contribution is 1 by 8 plus how many face centered atoms are there? How
2
many
into
face?
1 by 2.
6 into
2 into 1 by 2. So here also 1, here also 1. So 2 atoms per unit. So if it is a n cell, n centered, 2 atoms per unit cell is that clear? So by the next week, definitely I'll show you just 15 minutes. So I'll show you the animation. Then only you'll get a clear understanding. I think so. So maybe somebody has understand, somebody may not, because while taking in board, that's what I put animation, but unfortunately it's not working properly. Sorry for that. So then we can calculate the number of atoms per unit cell for simple cubic, or or it may be called as a primitive. How many number of atoms are there?
1, sir.
1 atom per unit cell. If it is a body centered unit cell, there are 2 atoms per unit cell. If it is a face centered unit cell, there are 4 atoms per unit cell. If it is a end centered unit cell, there are 2 atoms per unit cell. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So that is why we have to calculate the number of atoms per unit cell. So we have to calculate number of atoms for 1 unit cell. Okay. Okay, Kanna. Up to which we'll stop it. So next class I'll show you completely. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Kanna. Thank you. Thank you, madam. Yes.